So hubby says I can't build the Red Dead Man Bear Pig. Something about space. But he is totally game to be turned into zombie John Marston. He even went as far as to rat me out to John and Dutch.
Right now you're working on some Undead Nightmare stuff. That's awesome. I can't wait to see it. Hopefully I'll be able to see it somehow when you're done.
And you're currently working on an Undead Nightmare makeup that you plan to put out later this year. That is terrific, Chris. I'll tell you, being a part of a work of art that inspires others to make art of their own is one of the luckiest and greatest joys in my life. So I love that you're making an Undead Nightmare makeup.
Which means I can't let this project sit unfinished in the art room for a year. So I had no choice but to follow through and get this look done. I tend to like to knock out the easier parts first. Got all the basic pieces for the costume together and just grimed it up a little. Not going for a super bloody version, going more for the look in the artwork as opposed to the actual gameplay. Now camp funds are a little low for real leather. Plus, I don't even know how to do leather work, much less carve designs into it. So we're gonna fake it. Got this faux leather material. It had a filigree pattern that I figured would work well. Took a basic belt pattern and just added extra pieces where the buckle would go and the end with the holes, whatever that's called. Cut the shape out of EVA foam to back the fabric because it's really flimsy. Then just glued the foam onto the fabric. John is armed to the teeth for this zombie apocalypse, and having an empty holster just seemed a little silly. Got a 3D printed revolver and just had to assemble and paint it. This was also super helpful to create the template for the holster. But it was while making the holster, I realized something didn't feel right.
This don't feel right. Now it don't feel right.
I screwed up and jumped the gun. On the original template, I forgot to add the panel that actually holds the holster to the belt. So peeled the fabric off, just have to add that extra piece of foam, then glued a whole new piece of fabric over so it all is one piece. Now in real leather carving, the outer edge is where the stitching is, and it's also smooth. We're not gonna do any stitching, but I do wanna have that smooth texture on the outer portion. So I just added a smooth edge with the regular leather texture fabric. The only real leather in this whole project are the straps that go over the holster. Added holes and just hot glued them on. Since I practiced attaching buckles to those little straps, I guess we can graduate to the gun belt. I've been avoiding this long enough. Gotta get those bullet loops done. Basically, you have to weave the smooth fabric through the belt and make even-ish loops. They have nice templates you can use and even a long shaped hole punch, but I don't have any of that fancy stuff, so we're just gonna have to go with it. The fabric is flimsier than leather, so the loops kind of collapse when there's nothing in them. You're probably thinking, just fill them with bullets. Well, the ones I use for a guide for the loops, I only have 6. I know, not optimal for a war on zombies.
Guess you got other plans. Seriously, enjoy your meal, no problem.
But I have faith in John. So these loops didn't look so pitiful. I stuffed them with some clear tubing just to help keep the shape. Once the holster is attached, now to move on to the juicy bits.
I'll give you insight. I'll show you what your guts look like.
To start at the guts, had to figure out the size, just using a tissue for this, and created the intestines with cotton, just cover it all in latex. Made some torn skin texture with paper towel and latex. And get it all painted up with a very sticky mixture of glue and paint. A little shading. Now I have to rip the hole out in the vest to distress the edges, just so it didn't look so cleanly cut out. Glue it in place. Now definitely have to bloody this up. But while filming this, the guts started to look a little against terms and services. So to not upset YouTube, we're gonna just throw a nice little filter over that footage. So I got a wig, it's a little too thick, and unless John is gonna hang his hat up to become a lush hair model, we're gonna need to hack it up a little bit. Also added the right amount of grease, and now we're getting somewhere. On for the real fun. Making the face ahead of time because it would be a real nightmare trying to build it directly on the skin. First, need to hide the nose under a mountain of silicone. Then build up those bony areas. This does take layers to build up because The more you try to add at once, it's just gonna wanna ooze and drip. And despite what Dutch has to say, we are gonna have to fight gravity today.
Huh.
At least until it sets up and starts to stiffen. Push some teeth into a fresh product. Now just have to make them look like they're in the jawbone as opposed to just sitting on top. Really chisel that chin. Time for skin. Did add some green, but that's really just for me with sculpting. It makes it easier so I can see the difference and really start seeing it come together. Spent most of the time chasing the product, just trying to get those iconic scars in place. Want the skin to look sort of tattered around the exposed bone. While it starts to set up, added some lumpy, gross, rotten texture. Pre-painted a little bit because I wanted to cut down on time under makeup. The bony parts are going to be covered in blood, but I did go in and add some darker colors in the crevices just to give it a little dimension. Even sponged a little red so that it wouldn't just be one shade of red in the end product. Also made the arm wound out of silicone. I just wanted something 3D for those little maggots to sit in. Peel it off and ready to go. Makeup day is finally here. All the work comes down to this. Glue the pieces to start to blend it in. Paint more textures for a sickly zombie skin. Getting all of this knocked out. Unfortunately, we went through the whole thing. Got dressed, shot all the footage, and I completely hated it. Besides issues with my final color choices, the fabric backdrop was its own set of problems. So after a little delicate persuasion,
best not to make a big drama of things.
we decided to redo the makeup. Okay, well maybe he offered to sit again, but the latter just isn't as dramatic. Take two, better game plan. For the worms, I use fishing lures, and this material does not stick to anything. The first makeup I was fighting them, so naturally I decided to add another worm. This is what I get for being lazy and not making my own bugs. Eventually, it stopped trying to slide off the prosthetic, painting the whole makeup more realistic this time, as opposed to that more cartoonish style I was headed down in the first go. Cue the montage. And be sure to like this video or you eat babies.
We eat berries and mushrooms, you fool!